not exactly hidden. Tyr found herself just enchanted by Koga's presence. He had cloaked his natural scent under the smells of the dark forest, but it was still there, warming her in ways that had little to do with the fire that burned within. She wanted so much to lean into it, to simply bask in the pleasure of the heat and warmth. But she has a part to attend to, not to mention she doubts Koga would play along. He seems much more focused on his duties and his tasks. It's different. There are so many tales and stories of what humans are like. She had looked into all of them after her first encounter with Koga. There were rumors of elite bounty hunters, pirate crews controlled by hidden husbands, entire worlds conquered, and always vicious and inventive warriors, defined mostly by sheer practicality, undying endurance, and flexibility in battle. Yet also a strange nobility as well, even here, in this place. They seemed dedicated to help, eager to make a first impression of nobility and strength. She had seen that silly new sitcom, Full Shelves, and the impression the human gave off within it was completely on point. Friendly until provoked, then as quick to forgive as they were to attack. Still, all things must end, and the dancing and general togetherness of the ball eventually died away towards the auction. It was actually a bit of a tradition in the Tyr barony to do as such. After all, if the ball had everyone feeling relaxed and open, then it would mean things would sell higher, as no one would be as on guard as they normally would. Also, inebriation was a factor, which was something amusing to witness, as apparently the statements about human resilience to toxins was massively understated. He didn't even seem to notice some of the strongest things available. She had brought it up to him, and he had responded with a few amusing stories about different men outright complimenting the bartender for giving out the proper stuff when someone had spiked their drinks. Some of the incidents had ended up in furious brawls, as the thoroughly embarrassed would-be rapist had tried to force the issue. Other times it involved the police showing up, and more than a few laughs at the criminal's expense. There had been a few more stories, but those ones were absurd to the point she would have to verify them later. After all, what man in his right mind would decide he likes the would-be rapist Moxie and leaves the bar with her over his shoulder in an insane reversal of the situation? Of course, Koga had sworn by the insane assertion stating that this had been very early in humanity arriving on the scene in the first 2 to 3 days. The men had been pent up, frustrated, and very, very eager. The auction was in the next hall, and once more to read the description of what Koga and the other sorcerers had donated made her pause to consider. It wasn't that she thought they were lying. It contained references to show there was historical proof for a fair number of the claims involved. But the sheer absurdity of the donation, also the fact that it opened with a 2,500,000 credit claim on it from Bryn Char, and a note that he intends to give it to the Empress on her birthday, just really drove it home. The chairs that the entire crowd shuffles into are all plush, and made, of course, to the Apuk standard so that their tails are well and truly accommodated for. As the last few touches of setup are done, she tries to spot which of the Apuk men that volunteered to help with this were in fact human sorcerers. She knows she must have spotted a few, but since they're apparently using Axiom to move their tails, it's effectively impossible to tell without grabbing their tails to see if they have a pulse. And wouldn't that be a wonderful scandal for the tabloids to eat up? Baroness grabs the tails of volunteers at Charity Ball. She had also been told that the horns of the false Apuk were made of polished wood, and she thought she spotted one or two with a slightly odd pattern in the horn. But with the serving staff in dutiful motion, there was no way to examine them closely without drawing enormous attention to herself. She would just have to ask after the fact. No doubt Koga and his kin would like to boast about their accomplishment. "Attention! Attention, please! As you all know, I am your hostess, Baroness Uthtir, and the charity auction is about to begin. Once again, this auction is for the rebuilding of Nodok and the healing of its people after the unfortunate incident of late. So, to begin with are two items from the current rulers of Tars and Twen. In that order, we flipped a coin as they both wanted to go first, so let us begin this evening. A display stand is floated out and set down on the table before concealing the item. This is a genuine Malus Tars ornamental war sword. This is the 51st of the Holy 100 series that the forge artist and master metallurgian crafted 800 years ago. This was one of several from the Holy 100 line that was kept with the family exclusively and is now being released today. Notice the delicate carvings along the sword's primary blade and the barbs. Beginning from one side of the sword to the other, there is the entirety of the epic of Lady Ada Shi, the first empress of Serbo, told scene by scene, an art piece from the pommel to the tip. The bidding begins at 1 million. A hand is held up from a particular part of the audience. That is 1 million credits from the Museum of Martial Might. Do I have a competing offer? The bidding begins in earnest, and the blade eventually goes to Countess Fari Grey for 30,750,000 credits. As she has her staff move the object away to make way for the next piece, Uthtir feels herself relax. The sheer amount the 51st of the Holy 100 went for will massively repair Nodok. Even if the rest of the lots only go for the starting bid amount, then the city should make a substantial recovery. Our second item is a donation from Twen and is a collection of 4 ornate crowns dating back 276 years ago. The Battle Princess Quaratwen, now having abdicated the throne of her family's land for some 250 years, sent out for these 4 trophies of battle to be returned. Each crown was commissioned in celebration of the fourfold campaign, where no less than 4 massive fleets of pirates, marauders, and other such degeneracy were defeated in grand battle. At the time, the Empress promised both her personal favor and a trophy for each enemy leader brought to her on bended knee. Princess Quaratwen then proved herself exceptional and proceeded to reduce the enemy fleet power by 1/10 when she attacked the largest vessels alone, and brought the 4 survivors of her one-woman slaughter of 10 command ships to the Empress in chains. This incredible display of martial strength is the tipping point where it was declared that challenging a battle princess without a small army behind you was legally suicide. As such, these are a minor but important touchstone of recent Apuk history, and the bidding begins at 4 million credits for the lot. The bids are faster this time, more eager as well. A piece of handcrafted artwork is astounding, yet a piece of actual history that's alive today in every sense of the word. That's downright priceless. She wonders what the third piece will bring before things start to die down a little. That's 100 million credits going once, she calls out. For these 4 historical crowns dating to one of the greater victories of the Apuk people, we have 100 million credits going twice, she calls out again. It seems no one is going to challenge it. And we have sold these pristine crowns for 100 million credits. If the Preservation Society would be so kind as to collect your prize after the auction, we have more to get through, which includes our third of the large donations. Matching the incredible value from Twen and Tars is a third piece, this one placed in the auction by the sorcerers of the Dark Forest. The very first art piece made by sorcerers as a whole, rather than by individuals with sorceress power. She explains as the crowns are moved to the side and this third piece is brought forward. She glances at it nervously. She had received warnings about it. The cloth is pulled away to reveal a large crystal dome containing what appears to be a small field of dark purple flowers. These flowers have 2 gaps within them. One an unusual sculpture made of tritite and polished to a mirror shine. The other a knife, its blade stained with blood. As many of you no doubt have guessed, This piece has been made with components of the recent debacle we have all witnessed. The piece is called Mortality Preserved, and it is said to represent death and life, as well as consequences and justice. There are numerous components to this piece, and each one is carefully chosen. She takes a steady breath that the microphone doesn't pick up, thankfully. The uppermost layer is a converted diamond casing, the air around it slowly being altered with expert axiom control by none other than Vernon Shea, preserving the internals for all time. You would need a meteoric impact to crack the outermost shell of this piece, and many tools would only find themselves breaking against it should a vandal find their way to it. This piece is in mourning and yet celebration for the recent events on Nodok. For although there was great death and pain, new life grows regardless, as symbolized by the surrounding flowers. But new life can also be dangerous. This is symbolized by the species of flower, a breed that grows only within the dark forest. These beautiful purple flowers have many names throughout history and have only been the subject of rumor and story. In the ancient epic of Lil Annal, they are known as chillwort, for merely touching the stem slowly kills the shield-bearer and dear friend of Lil Annal, whose name has been lost to history despite this death sending the epic heroine into a years-long depression, before her flames reignite in greater wrath, leading to her conquering of the fell sorcerer Kreschak. This portion of the tale can be found in the first volume of the epic, just before the end, and this delay in the Lil Annal's conquest of the sorcerer is what allowed many of her rivals time to gather greater power. Indeed, one could even claim that without this simple flower, the epic of Lil Annal would be at least one volume shorter and vastly different as well. Our second name comes from another noticeable piece of history having affected the Unification Wars. Our empresses might have begun with a very different name if the Greater Western Empire's relief force didn't make a shortcut through the dark forest. One of the women at the edge of camp attempted to pick a flower and felt the effects immediately. She tried to cleanse herself of the deadly poison by breathing fire upon it, turning the deadly poison into an even more dangerous gas. Even worse, her blast engulfed numerous other flowers, and the only reason we have any record of this terrible loss is that the archivist of the relief force had fallen behind and was at a safe distance to see the smoke claim the entire force. She dubbed the deadly bloom the Empress's last gasp. She takes a sip of water to soothe her throat before continuing. There are several other stories and names: Sorcerer's Bloom, the Flower of Death, Bloom of Mourning, Winter's Stem, Sorcerer's Scorn, and more. It was legally categorized as silverthorn some 1,000 years ago by the botanist Uthal Ayaz, who observed the enormous aversion all animal life held to the plant and especially its thorns. She elected to not gather any samples, placing the legal categorization of its name into question. According to the sorcerers, they have asked the woods themselves how many have fallen to these delicate-seeming plants, at which point the answer was nothing short of legions of legions. This in all of its history is only the second time that any of these flowers have left the dark forest. The first time was where a sampling was sent for scientific study among the humans, one of the most poison-resistant races in the known galaxy. This is the first time it has been used in any form of art piece and is safely behind diamond protections for your enjoyment. After the storied history of the flowers, it seems almost boring to note that the back plating and stand upon which this piece sits was made from the armor of the tanks that attacked Nodok. I do not need to explain to anyone here where the knife or the tri-tight casting of the aka digestive tract comes from. However, the sorcerers have assured me that the other three are incorporated into this piece as well, explaining that the silverthorn was grown from the remains of the three Apuk involved. She finishes up the explanation before taking another sip. What a terrifying and brazen entry. Koga and his ilk may be good at sneaking, but when it came to sending messages, they were as subtle as an apocalypse. This piece begins with a bid on it already, as the sorcerer Bryn Char desires to purchase the item with intention of gifting it to the Empress herself come her birthday celebration. As such, we must defeat his opening offer of 2,500,000 credits. 3 million. 4 million. Bryn Char counters the offer immediately. He clearly wants the piece. 4.5 million.